There's Just Something About Kansas City is brought to you by the generosity of our friends with the Haverty family, the Illig family, the Kearney Warnell Foundation, UMB Bank trustee, the Sherman family, the Cockrell family, Kansas City Orthopedic Institute, Don and Mary Doherty, and the Bergman family. Thank you.
Folks, welcome once again to another episode of There's Just Something About Kansas City, where we talk about the people, places, and things that make this such a great place to live. Don't forget, you get us anywhere that you get your podcast. You can also watch us on YouTube. If you're watching us, the guy sitting across from me be very, very familiar to Chiefs fans and virtually everybody else in Kansas City because of all the great work he's done. We're going to talk about the one and only Deron Cherry. Deron, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Hey, Frank, thanks for having me. You know, we go way, way back. Both East Coast guys, right?
Both East Coast guys. Yeah, you're a Rutgers guy.
Rutgers, Villanova,
yeah.
So right across the bridge from where I grew up in Palmyra, New Jersey.
That's right.
The Big Five, remember?
The Big Five.
Old Big Five. Yeah, the Palestra. Playing at the Palestra.
Yeah, Temple.
Temple.
St. Joe.
Yeah.
Villanova. It was great.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Awesome.
How you doing?
I'm great,
man. How's Deron Cherry? Life
is good. Life is good.
It really is.
You know, just doing what I can. You know, I figure as long as I'm on this earth, I'm going to try to serve as much as I can and help as many people as I can before I leave this earth. And this has been just been some great times for me and my family, watching my kids grow up. And this has been just been a great part of my life that I'm really, really enjoying.
Yeah, you bet. We'll talk about the giving back. It's just been incredible. I think it started with Score One for Health, I think, way back. And now it has branched out to you are on the show. there are so many things here. It's just incredible. But I think that's great. And I think you learned that way back in Palmyra, up there. Up in Riverside Township, New Jersey, prior to Palmyra, and with your mom and dad, Lillian and George, and the passel of kids they had and everything growing up. What was it like for you growing up?
Hey, man, it was a great community. I mean, I don't know if you really see these communities that we had growing up, Frank, because everybody was family. You know, you go 5 blocks down the street, and somebody was whooping your butt because they saw you doing something wrong. By the time you got home, your mom knew about it, and then she was whooping your butt too.
Then your dad got home.
That's right. Then Dad got home, and so it was a community that raised us, and it was just a great place to feel safe. You know, most kids today, they don't feel safe. They got so much that occupies their time. I mean, we were out on the streets all the time. You know, we were going up and down, playing, just having a good time, and you felt safe. You didn't feel like at any point in time you were in danger. I mean, when I go back home and I think about the places I used to walk to and how far we used to go, it's like now you be going like, you went where? You did what? And I'm going like, no, we used to do all that. When I tell my kids that, they're going like, no way. Like they don't believe like I walked to school every day.
Yeah.
Every day for the number of years I went from grade school to elementary to high school, I walked to school every day. Here, I'm driving my kids to school,
2 blocks.
dropping them off 2 blocks. They're driving. I go, no, we walked. And that's what is what we did back then. But, it was a great community to grow up in, close-knit town. We all got along. It didn't matter. When I grew up, I was born in 1959. And then that 60s era, that was that era. But, we were all close. I mean, we all, the white kids, the black kids, we all played together. We all knew each other. Our families knew each other. And it was just, we played sports together. And it was just a good time. And I think that's where my foundation really was built, with people in our community that really instilled in us a lot of very, very good characteristics that, we needed to live by and things we needed to follow. And just working hard and respecting each other for who they are and not the color of their skin. That's what I grew up in, and that's what my family was about. And, I still take that to this day.
Yeah, and they're both your mom and dad were Educators.
Yeah.
Okay. Your mom, I
Yeah.
think, was special ed. And
Special ed, and my dad, he was an English
teacher.
and then
Oh,
eventually
okay.
became a principal. So, yeah, I remember my dad coming home. He used to have this paddle, Frank. This is back in the day when they used to.
Was it like the fraternity paddle that had the holes in it?
Yeah, it had the hole in it.
No, no air resistance.
No air resistance. And then the other thing what he'd do is he'd take one of those little pen knives and he just etched the name. Every person that he would spank, he would etch their name in that paddle. Gosh. So he'd have a record of who it was in that paddle. I mean, this was back, when they could, even in high school, they could give them wax.
Absolutely.
It's just
we got
like,
the same thing.
Yeah.
We had a prefect of discipline. My parents didn't worry about it at all. They knew we were going to get it at school.
Yeah, boy, man. I tell you what, those were the days, man. I remember running, trying to get away from that paddle a number of times, But, yeah, they were both educators. So education was always front and center in our family. And it was we learned a lot of lessons, But, my dad also, he was a sports fan, so we grew up with sports. He was a basketball official for over 40 years and a baseball umpire for the same length of time. So when we were growing up, we were always around games, right? Whether it was basketball, whether it was, baseball, football. He coached football at Woodrow Wilson High School, is where Mike Rozier, who's a Heisman Trophy winner, where he went to school. He was coach there at that school. So we used to go, and we were just, as kids, we were around that environment, and that helped us because from a discipline standpoint, we learned early on in our life about discipline and being accountable. Mm-hmm. And I used to be in awe going to like football training camp back in high school, sleeping in the gym with these guys, and these guys I looked up to, and I'm going like, man, this dude's he's going to be a great player one day. And you just look up to him, and they would tell us, hey, just keep working hard, and
stay out of trouble.
And so I learned early on in life a lot of great lessons that really was instilled in me.
Yeah, and you had, There's 6 brothers?
Oh, yeah, five. There were 5 of us.
5 boys and your poor sister.
My sister, yeah. And she was probably the meanest and the best of all of us. Maybe the best, yeah. She was hard knocks, man. I'm telling you. She was very athletic, but she was tough, man. She used to fight us every single day.
Wow.
But yeah, she's done well. She turned out to be a great athlete. She actually came here when I first came here to Kansas City, taught at Barstow.
Yeah, right.
She was the field hockey coach there.
She's very nice to meet you, by the way. So I don't know where you get all this meat stuff.
I know. But then she actually moved to Danville, Illinois, and then she was the assistant principal there, and then became the principal of the high school. And she's since retired from the high school, but then she's back in as a principal at a private school there. So she can't give it up, but she's going to retire here in the next year or so.
What about the brothers? I know you and Dwayne.
Yeah, me and Dwayne, we were the closest ones. Now, I lost my two, my oldest brother and my youngest brother.
Yeah, lost Derek, right?
Lost Derek, and George, who was the youngest, he died of an aneurysm. And then, so Dwayne and I are very, very close. I mean, growing up, we were close. Everybody used to think we were twins because we're only like actually me, Dwayne, my sister Tracy, and I, we're all like a year apart. Mm-hmm. We're all born in September.
Dad and Mom were busy.
I know, they were busy. My brother's on the 9th, I'm on the 12th, and my sister is the 30th. So we're all like a year apart. So we're all real close. And my brother and I were always close. We wind up, in high school. He was a quarterback. I was a quarterback. Then he moved. Then I beat him out for the job.
Beat him out. Yes.
So he became the wide receiver. He was a kicker. I was a punter. My brother was a center. He was a snapper. So all 3 of us played together in high school. And then my brother wound up going to Rutgers, and then I followed him there, and we played both football and baseball at Rutgers.
Yeah, right. Well, you played football, basketball, and baseball in high school, right?
Yeah. We played all 3 sports in high school, and my brother was a hell of a pitcher, and we did it all. I mean, that's and then my sister, she might have been the best athlete in the family. She was, she played basketball, she played field hockey. She actually got a scholarship to Ursinus College in Pennsylvania, which was really, really good. They were national champs in field hockey, and she went to school there, and she was as good an athlete as we were. So that sport was rough, field hockey.
That's what I mean. People don't understand. Yeah. People wonder field hockey. Is that like lacrosse?
Yeah.
No, a little bit different.
Yeah, a little bit
sticks and that hard ball.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But she played that sport, and she wound up having a great career.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, you ended up going to Rutgers, and I know your brother went to Rutgers, so you followed. But when you were getting out of high school, you were a 3-sport athlete, all New Jersey, everything. Okay, so was there anybody else knocking on your door that you even considered besides going not too far away to Rutgers?
Well, actually, Frank, I took a trip to University of Minnesota as one of my trips, and my host happened to be a guy by the name of, let me think, Tony Dungy.
Oh, my gosh.
He was my host
when
I went to
awesome.
Minnesota on my visit, and that was the first time I'd ever got on a plane and flew, and, I was like, oh, this is great. And I was hoping that Minnesota would offer me because, they had a great dental school, and that's what I wanted to be. Was a dentist. And so they had a great school, and I'm sitting there waiting by the phone, and the guy never called me. And but my cousin who had went to Haddon Heights High School, Roy Artis, he wound up getting an offer, and another player that played at Kevin Ross's high school, guy by the name of Chester Cooper, he was a receiver. They wind up getting offers, and they wind up going to school there, and the guy didn't offer me. But the interesting thing was when we were at camp in River Falls, the first year we were at River Falls in Wisconsin, we had a coach that came from Brigham Young. He was an offensive line coach, but he was the recruiting coordinator for the University of Minnesota during the time they were recruiting me. Oh. So I got a chance to see him. Yeah, you see what you missed out on?
Yeah, what's wrong with
you? You didn't offer me. Go, oh, it wasn't my fault. I wanted to offer you a scholarship. They didn't. Coach,
making up
the coach,
And he'd go, where's he from?
Yeah, so I got to pick at him and make sure he knew, like, hey, look at the mistake you made. But, it was all fun.
Yeah, the interesting part for me is, so you go to Rutgers on a full scholarship, okay? Yeah. So in those days, folks, there's no NIL, there's no transfer portal, there's nothing, okay? You're on full scholarship. And then because you're a biology major, right? Because you want to become a dentist, you decide that being on full scholarship, is not, you want to work while you're in school. You give up the full scholarship and go for a grant and aid because you want to work while you're there, right?
Yeah.
Which is, I have never heard of anyone doing anything close to that at that point.
Well, Frank, first of all, my parents, there were, 1, 2, 3 of us in college at one time, or actually 4 of us. 3 of us in college at one time, my sister, my brother, and me. And then my oldest brother had probably just graduated. He went to College of Worcester in Ohio. So we didn't, my mom and dad, they were divorced by that time, and we didn't have a lot of money. And, the only way, you couldn't, they give you a scholarship and that was it. You didn't have anything. And then if you're on scholarship, like you said, you couldn't work.
Right. And you couldn't have any spending money.
No spending money. They didn't give us anything, not like today, these kids they get a stipend or they can earn money now.
Sure they can.
We couldn't earn money back then. So, the only thing that we would do is sometimes during the season, maybe if you're on the road, you might sell your game tickets or something like that to get a little extra change in your pocket. But so I said, well, shoot, I'm just going to give up my scholarship. I was eligible for financial aid. So I said, if I do that, then I can have a job, you know? So we wind up working for Yellow Freight, at night. We'd have to go in at 12 o'clock midnight. Loading the trucks at night. We go in at 12 o'clock midnight, 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock, and we go in and they say, okay, we've got some work for you tonight. So we stay there and work. And we had great supervisors. They knew we were students. And so when
Did they know you were a football player?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. And when it got slow, they, hey, got to get your homework done. You could do your homework or whatever. And But yeah, we worked and shit, we'd make, $100, $150 a night.
Ooh.
That was big cash back then, man.
You're loaded. You're good for a couple of
months. We get on the train, go to New York City.
Or Philly.
Or Philly. And man, we at least we had some money, and then my brother and I, we shared a car together on campus. So you had to have gas money, right? Or else you couldn't get around. But yeah, those were times where, you had to make those decisions, and hopefully it worked out for us. So.
Yeah, it all worked out as far as work ethic and everything else concerned. What you did, what these kids do now is nothing. I mean, some kids are making $1 million, 1.5 million, 2 million. I don't know how much Arch Manning is making down in Texas, but he says he may stay another year, so he's making more money than he would have if he came out of the NFL draft.
Well, some of these guys, when they get to the NFL, they're taking a pay cut.
That's exactly why they stay in school. Yeah. It's crazy. So you're going through Rutgers. When did you think, okay, you wanted to be a dentist, but when did you think, you know what, I'm doing pretty well. I'm doing well here playing at Rutgers. It's a big school. It's a big university. Yeah. We're playing really good football teams, and I'm holding my own. When did you think, maybe I just might be able to make it in the pros?
When I was a freshman, I had some decisions to make, of course, because I was still playing baseball, and I had an opportunity to sign a professional baseball contract with the Phillies.
Right.
This guy was following me around, the scout was, and wanted me to sign, and I remember Coach Burns, Frank Burns, was the head coach, and this guy would come to training camp and sit up there in the stands with my dad, and he had this Philadelphia Phillies cap on. And Coach Burns says, "Oh, who's that guy sitting with your dad? He's here every day. What's the story?" I go, "Well, he's a scout for the Phillies, and he's trying to get me to sign a professional baseball contract." And I told him at this point in time I didn't want to, and he goes, "Well, why don't you tell him to go away?" I said, "I can't do that. This guy's here on his own."
I'm surprised. Coach Burns didn't go up and say, "Hey, buddy,
I said,
beat it."
I said, "I'll tell you what I'll do." I said, "Well, if you let me play baseball in the spring, on the team, then I'll tell him to go away. I'm not going to sign, and I'll stay here." And so he kind of agreed that,
because then you're going to miss spring ball, right? Miss spring football.
And here's the thing, Frank. At that time, you well know that you couldn't be a professional baseball player and have an amateur status in football in college.
Because of money.
The money. Yeah. They, once you took that money or signed that contract, you were considered a professional and no more of an amateur, so you couldn't play two sports at that time. And I think that all changed when I think Elway came around, when he could play baseball and football at the same time. But we didn't have that luxury, so you had to, either pick playing baseball or keeping your eligibility and performing in college. So that's exactly kind of I made that decision, to use that to my advantage to get him to let me to play baseball. So that's how that happened.
And so then when did you start hearing from pro scouts, maybe?
I didn't, my sophomore year, I wound up, not starting at first. The first game of the season, I think we were playing at Penn State.
That's a good
opening game.
That's a good way to start the season.
Yeah, start the season there. I remember they had Matt Millen was there, and then they had that big defensive tackle. I can't think of his
Reed?
name. No, it wasn't Reed. It was what was his name? Oh, he was an All-American, first team All-American, big dudes. They just slammed our quarterback so bad. It was bad. We got demolished that game, and I remember my secondary coach coming over to me saying, get ready. So probably towards the end of that game, they wound up putting me in. Now, mind you, I was competing against seniors. I had two seniors in front of me, and I was a sophomore. Mm-hmm. So he said, just hang in there. Well, that next week, he comes up to me at practice, says, "Hey, you're going to be starting." So they wind up, after that first game, they
figured they're going to play some young players.
Yeah, and they took those seniors out and put me in, and the rest was history. So I was also the punter too at that time. So
very good punter.
Yeah. So they had so that made me feel a lot more comfortable. And then when it really, when you're junior year, you're playing, teams like Tennessee, and then we wind up playing Alabama, and we played all the big teams on the East Coast and stuff like that. You start realizing that, well, maybe I can play, and all you're looking for is an opportunity. So by my senior year, after the season was over, my defensive coordinator, Ted Cottrell, wound up coming out here to Kansas City. And that's really how everything started. He says, hey, whatever you're doing, during the draft, don't sign with anybody if you don't get drafted. We like to sign you. And at that time, he was talking about as a punter because Kansas City was looking for punters. And so I said, well, I'll hold off. But, it was funny, ironic, because Marty Schottenheimer called me. He was with Cleveland at the time. Yeah. He wanted me to sign a free agent contract. And then it was the New York Giants, the Jets, and the Eagles. They're all right local,
there. They'd seen all your games.
Yeah, so they were all asking, and then, Coach Cottrell said, hey, you want to come out to Kansas City? And I said, well, sure, I'll come out to Kansas City. So I came out to Kansas City, and then
You're undrafted.
Signed as a punter, and
as a punter.
As a punter, yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. So the punting thing didn't work out, and you were cut.
Yeah, we had Frank Gantz. Well, yeah, we had Frank Gantz.
Frank Gantz, a special teams coach.
Yeah, he was a special teams coach, and he was this guy that, I had never had a punt blocked in my whole entire career, high school, college, and I could get the ball off real quick. And he wanted to change my whole punting style. He wanted me to be a two-step punter because he believed that two-step punters never got the punt block. I've seen two-step punters get punts. Yeah. So, it was like learning how to kick all over again. And so I knew kind of the handwriting was on the wall. I better do something different. And so I remember getting my letter to report to camp 3 days prior to training camp when I was supposed to come in like 2 weeks prior to get acclimated and everything like that. So I was at home, sitting at home, picked up the phone, called Marv Levy and said, hey, can I come back in and work as not only punt, but I could play quarterback, I could play cornerback, I could play safety position.
Like a scout team guy.
Yeah, I could do it all. And I'm selling myself to him to give me an opportunity to come in. And that year they had drafted 3 safeties that year in the draft. So Lloyd Burris was 3A or 3B or whatever. And then they had 2 other guys that, both one in the 5th round, one in the 7th round. And both of those guys, they had played in these all-star games. And when I was watching them at camp, when we came into mini camp, I'm going like, man, I'm just as good as these guys. I mean, I just want to get a shot. So I asked Coach Levy, could I come in and work as a defensive back in the secondary? And thank goodness he made the call and said, yeah, come on back in and work out. So, and then I was like I made it all the way through. Those guys got cut. I made it all the way through. We were playing the last preseason game in Miami, and I'll never forget this. Frank Gantz, walks up to me right before we're getting ready to go out on the field and says, hey, you're going to be returning punts today.
Instead of punting, you're bringing them back.
Yeah, I'm bringing them back. Never done it in my life, right? I said, these dudes trying to get me cut, right? They trying to make an issue out of me. And I said, the first punt came up. I said, yeah, I'm sitting there watching this punt go off. And now you can feel these guys coming down, breathing down your neck. What would a Rutgers guy do? And I threw my hands up in the air. Fair catch. Caught the ball, put it down, walked over to the sideline.
You're not cutting me today.
Yeah, he ain't cutting me.
No,
he ain't cutting me. I'm smarter than that.
That's right.
And then the second one I got it hit the ground in front of me. I think I returned it for 4 yards, and he just said, you're done. We don't need to see anymore. And then I came in the next day, and, at that time, it's a 45-man roster, Frank. And so, you had 7 defensive backs, and most teams kept 7 defensive backs. And I'm all dressed, ready to go out to practice because we're playing Pittsburgh opening game in Pittsburgh. And so,
I was
all my family's excited. They're ready to come and everything. And this is Monday. This is practice day. You're going out. Everybody's in pads. We're going out. And I remember a guy coming down and said, hey, you need to go see Les Miller, who was the pro personnel guy.
The Grim Reaper.
Yeah, but at that time, you didn't know. You didn't know if he was, like, congratulating you on making the team. I go up in his office. He goes, hey, I'm sorry. We got to let you go. We got to keep 4 tight ends because remember that year they drafted Willie Scott. And Marvin Harvey was the other guy. And then they had Ed Beckman and Al Dixon was the starter. So nobody kept 4 tight ends, but Ed Beckman was the special teams captain, and, Coach Levy loved him. I mean, they all loved him because he was just a hard-nosed guy, so they weren't going to cut him. he was a special teams captain. So they had to keep the 2 rookies because they didn't want to give up on them. So they started the season with 6 defensive backs. And so I wound up going home that Sunday night after the game. They upset the Steelers in Pittsburgh, beat them. That Sunday night I get a call from my mom. I'm up in East Orange, New Jersey at my college roommate's house. I went and spent the weekend with him. And my mom calls me and says, hey, Kansas City's called. Said they need you back out in Kansas City. You know, they got a plane ticket waiting for you at the airport in Philadelphia. You need to go. So I rush, get back home, pack a bag, get on the plane, come out here. They pick me up at the airport. I get in here. It's about 6:30 that night and go into Jim Schaaf's office. He's the general manager. And Jim Schaaf looks at me and goes, well, you know, the injury we thought to the safety wasn't as serious we thought. He's going to be okay, so we're not going to be able to sign you. So I wound up staying with Gary Green.
The defensive back.
The defensive back. He had a 2-bedroom apartment. Said, hey, you can stay in my spare bedroom, and, you know, you can drive me to practice. You can keep my car, and then you can go work out during the day, keep yourself in shape. And then the next week, the Chiefs called me in and said, hey, if nobody gets hurt, because they couldn't hide you.
Sure.
You know, we'll have to send you home. And then that next week, there was a couple guys got injured, Art Still, and then Frank Manu Maliuna, the linebacker.
Yeah.
He got injured, and then they signed me right away.
Yeah. This is amazing. You and I, you talked about Pittsburgh. You and I got here at the same time, 81.
Yeah.
We got
81.
81 was crazy.
Yeah.
It was nuts. But then from that point on, you were that was it from that point on. Yeah.
You know, I look back on that time. I mean, just see how God has, you know, stepped into that situation, you know, being able to make that call to Coach Levy, but, you know, God putting it on his heart to say, let this kid come in and get an opportunity, you know, because Frank, sometimes, you know, in life, all we look for is opportunities, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And, you know, you never know when those opportunities are going to come, and then you have to prepare for them. And, you know, that's what I tried to do. Even when, you know, I wind up making the team, and then, you know, you're kind of the where you stand. You're kind of the last 5 of the 45-man roster. Your first 2 years. Don't get hurt. And then what happens? I wound up getting hurt at the end of the year, my rookie year. You know, got my shoulder separated. Come back the next year, and, you know, we wind up having a strike year.
That's right.
And then the first game, I think somebody come down and clip me, and I wind up having a high ankle sprain. But then that next week we go on, we're on strike, so the season's cut out, and right. So in a way it kind of benefited me because I was injured, and then we come back, and, you know, I was back playing, and then I get hurt at the end of the season. Right. And then come back, and then we had a coaching change, right? That's when they fired Coach Levy, and then they brought in John Malkovich, and then we were all starting fresh from a new slate. So, and that was the time when the USFL came around, and Gary Barbaro wound up signing. He was a safety, all-pro safety. I was playing behind, wound up signing a contract with the New Jersey Generals, and I remember this as clear as day. And then Walt Corey was the guy, my secondary coach, wound up standing up saying, hey, we don't need to go find a guy. We've got one right here. And then Bud Carson came in, and Bud changed the whole defense. So it was like they didn't have to worry about Gary because he was, you know, he was the leader back there. He was making all the calls. But Gary did something very unselfish. He poured into me and Lloyd, him and Gary Green. They both poured into us how to be professionals and do this the right way, and made sure that we were always prepared and ready to go if, in fact, those guys got injured. So they really were unselfish in how they, you know, taught us to be professionals, and that's how we learned. But that was the way that secondary was, and we continued that on. You know, it's probably, you know, there's not another team in professional sports, I don't think, that had a group of secondaries.
In those two different secondaries, you had Barbaro, Gary Green, Eric Harris, and you. Yeah. Okay. I mean, just terrific. I have a great story for you. I can't tell it on the air about Eric Harris in Memphis, Tennessee. And then and then you have you, Lloyd Burris, Kevin Ross, and Albert Lewis, and a great story about Albert too. But it's just, I mean, those secondaries, probably the best in football. Maybe there are individuals who may have been better than an individual, but as far as groups, they were two of the greatest groups ever in NFL history.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so we learned a lot from each other, and that wind up, making, when people thought about Kansas City, they thought about their secondaries always.
Defense and how hard hitting you guys were too.
How hard hitting.
Yeah, they're looking over their shoulders. Lloyd Burris, the Rock, Kevin Ross. Oh my God! He's 5'9", maybe
laying people out.
Just laying people out all the time. And your career was just terrific. 81 to 91 here, 11 years, 3-time first team All-Pro, 2-time second team All-Pro, 6 times in a Pro Bowl. We'll get back to the NFL Man of the Year award, which I think is probably one of the things that you rate higher than almost anything else that you've ever done. You're in the Kansas City Chiefs Hall of Honor, obviously. NFL record 4 interceptions in one game, which has tied some others, but 927 total tackles, 50 interceptions. Okay,
actually 53. I had 3 in the playoffs, but they don't count playoffs.
Ooh.
So I had 3 in playoff games. Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, so
53
total.
The playoffs.
Yeah.
Okay, so
and would have had more if Mike Bell would have kept his butt on sides. He always tells me that, right? He goes, D, you probably could have had 60, 70 interceptions if I didn't jump off sides.
He jumped off sides
all the time.
All the time, absolutely. But so, and you made the Chiefs Hall of Fame, obviously, hands down. NFL Hall of Fame. Okay, I looked at the records. Now, if you had those 53, I don't think there'd be any, but you have 50, and I looked at the other guys. 52, Larry Wilson from the old St. Louis Cardinals, 52 interceptions. Donnie Shell, the great player from the Pittsburgh Steelers, had 51. Then Yale Larry, way back in the day with the Detroit Lions, he had 50. You had 50. The only thing you don't have that they have are Super Bowls.
Right.
And I think that was probably, that's what is basically, I think it's the only thing keeping you out. I don't think you have the credentials to get in.
Oh, yeah. I think if you look at when you measure it up against, some of the greats, you can include even Ronnie Lott and those guys. Yeah. I think there's a period of time, there might have been like a 5 or 6 year stretch where nobody even came close to the numbers that, I put up in the league. But like you said, it's, a lot of it is measured on Super Bowls and
playoff wins.
And playoff wins. But the fact is, I don't control that. That's the thing. We don't control where we were. I mean, we had great defenses, and I think if you look at it, I think to a T, if you go and poll those sports writers and say what was the greatest secondary that ever played, we would have to be one of those secondaries. But it's like you said, if you're gonna judge it on championships and stuff like that, then you look at that, and that's the one thing that you don't have is those playoffs and championships. But I think if you look at it, in the games where you did perform in a playoff setting, if you performed well, that should have, some, measure of accomplishment, even though you didn't get it, because it's not everybody can make it to a Super Bowl. It's very, very difficult, except for these current Chiefs, but they got a quarterback in Patrick Mahomes it's a difference maker. But you don't control that. So, and then you gotta have people fighting for you, that understand the game and that can put you up and say, these guys should be there. Because if you can compare against guys that are in the Hall of Fame now at that position, there's no way you look at it and say, why aren't you there? Because everything that you've accomplished and done, says that you should be there. But maybe for one thing that's not there. It's unfortunate because there's other guys that are in that didn't win Super Bowls too.
Exactly. So I also the NFL Man of the Year award. Talk to me about what that meant to you to get that. I mean, you were the Chiefs Man of the Year, obviously several times, but NFL Man of the Year award to you. What did that mean to you?
Well, it means that you're doing something other than just playing your sport. You're helping out your community. You're being involved in a number of different things. And the fact that people recognize you. And for me, winning that Wizard White Award after a Supreme Court justice that stood for a lot of those same values, it made it really, really special because here's a guy out of Palmyra, New Jersey, and hopefully there are kids that looked up to me as, growing up in my hometown because we didn't have many pro athletes that made it out of that environment and then went on to, to have success in the National Football League. And that was special, but they see you doing other things that are impacting your community in a positive way. And so that's special because that means that, you're not full of yourself. You understand that there's something bigger out there, and that if you can be a positive impact or a role model for somebody or just an impact in your community, you're going to be, that's what God put us here to be. And so to me, those kind of that recognition means a lot more than, say, all the Pro Bowls and the All Pros because you're doing something for somebody else other than yourself.
Yeah, and this is probably a good spot for me to throw this in there. You really helped me with my career as well, okay, at Channel 4.
Oh, yeah.
This guy, okay, after playing all those games we're talking about, he used to come in Sunday night after the game was over. They could have played at noon or 3. They weren't playing a lot of late games in those days or Monday Night Football games, but noon or 3 o'clock game. You'd come in 10 o'clock at night, 10:30, I think we went on with the show, and we sat down and you did a Chiefs analysis for me about the turning point of the game, the spot in the game where the game turned either for or against the Kansas City Chiefs, and you were in there every Sunday. I look at it now and the way the players are now, that would never happen, but that was it really helped me because that gave me validation as well to have someone of your status come in and sit down with me and do the show.
Yeah, and it was fun. I mean, we had a great time. It was always fun, and not every Sunday night was a happy night.
No, it wasn't.
back in those days, we had a lot of losses. But I tell you, it was good when things started to turn around a little bit and the organization turned and it became fun again. Being in Arrowhead and seeing the transformation of Arrowhead Stadium.
Yeah.
Coming to where you're playing in front of sellout crowds instead of, I remember my rookie year, I think the last game, it might have been maybe 5,000 people
I think
in the
was
stand.
That the Jack Rudney frozen seat game.
They
were Jack Rudney was retiring. It rained the night before, and then it froze overnight. And no one could get the seats down.
Yeah, man. There were about 5,000 people in that stands, man, that game. And, that was, those were lean times. Now if you went in that, you can't get a ticket now. Right.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about too before we get into all the charity stuff, Score One for Health, and everything else that you're doing, and we'll talk about United Beverage and Jacksonville Jaguars and all that. The Chiefs ambassadors and what you guys do in the community as well. Right?
Yeah, we got a great group of guys. I mean, it's former players. I think they've had to been here 3 years or longer, and we get together. And I mean, for us, Frank, it's great because we get to continue that relationship that with each other that we had when we were playing. Now we got totally different guys from different generations, and that's. Thinks what makes this group so special because we get input from everybody from the different generations, and you get to understand what those guys went through and just feel just how truly blessed you were during the time you played. But then you're realizing that, man, these guys had it worse than us, and we had it worse than the guys that were before us. So it's a great group. We do a lot in the community where everybody is charged with going out there and trying to get involved with some organization that you can help support. And the guys are just amazing. I mean, as much work as we put in the community, I think a lot of it is really basically saying thank you to the fans in Kansas City and the people in Kansas City for supporting us during the times that we played. But more importantly, you've had it, like for me, having our foundation and having folks come and support us with what we're doing, our mission and our goals. The fans in Kansas City, I mean, there's no other place I would rather be than here when it comes to the community support that we get and the people that they just seem they're always there. They're always supporting. And so for us as ambassadors to be able to give back, and it also gives the team, I think, the option of using us rather than allowing these players to focus on what their job is. Because as you well know, Frank, when we were playing, we were all out in the community. I mean, we were doing stuff. I mean, on Tuesdays, we had so much, and times have changed now, and I think the focus is on where it should be with these players. Even though a lot of those players are doing things in the community and stuff like that, it gives an organization, they can come to us and say, hey, we've got this event, or we've got this sponsor that has an event, or we have this charitable event that's out there. Can you guys show up and be a representative of the team? And I mean, I think that's, was Lamar's vision. This is one big family, and it doesn't matter if you were here, in the 60s or the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, you're all part of a family, and that's great. And so we've enjoyed that relationship, and we continue to build on it.
Yeah, and I'm just going to run these down real quick. Special Olympics, muscular dystrophy, Project Warmth, Score One for Health, which was a huge one for you, Camp Quality, United Negro College Fund. You've had 33 or 34 years of your golf tournament as well, all raising money for all those different charities. And Score One for Health, I think, was maybe the biggest. I could be wrong. And you have the Deron Cherry Foundation now.
Right.
The Score One for Health was the one where we really took these kids dental and their eyes and their ears. Just kids weren't getting screened by doctors. Some of them would go to school and they'd think, well, that kid doesn't learn very well. He's not very smart. He couldn't hear, or he couldn't see very well.
Right. Or they're sitting
or their teeth hurt.
Right.
Their
They've
mouth
got
hurts.
cavities, or they need an extraction. Yeah, there's so many things that we take for granted. And even as a parent, I would, I remember my oldest son looking, squinting at the TV, and I'm going like, can you not see? And he goes, no, I can't see. And this was like, he was, I think, getting ready to go into 7th grade. And so I took him to one of our screenings, and sure enough, couldn't see. He had to have glasses, right? And it was like, he looks at me and goes, yeah, Dad, I can see now. It's like it opened up a whole new world, and then all of a sudden his grades improved. And
and you feeling 7th grade bad dad. You're thinking, oh, my God.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, here we are. We're providing this opportunity for these kids in elementary school to get their vision checked. And here I am that has the wherewithal to be able to take them to get his eyes checked, and he's sitting there squinting, and I'm going like, man, that's when it really hits home that there's such a huge need. It doesn't matter what your socioeconomic background is. If we could give these kids an opportunity to know what it feels like to be healthy as they start their career in education, then that's the blessing that we can give them, regardless of where they come from. We can even the playing field by making sure that they know physically that they're healthy and that they have no issues, they have no problems. Because I can't tell you over the years, 30-some years, how many kids that we've seen that, have an ear infection or have a pebble stuck up in their nose that they're not going to tell anybody, but it affects them, and then they got a vision problem, or, just a total body assessment testing where they, maybe their back is bothering them or something like that. And hopefully we can catch some of these problems before they get to be major problems, and allow these kids to have a good solid foundation on education, that they can build in their life. Because, my mom always told us that the greatest equalizer, regardless of where you come from, is the ability to get an education, because you can get yourself, you can change the deck of cards you've been dealt. And through education, that's possible. So we try to give these kids an opportunity to do that. And, thank goodness we've had a great partner in Kansas City University that's been our partner with Score One for Health for years, and, has really been a win-win situation for the university and for us screening these kids. And now we've even expanded into Joplin, Missouri, and some of these underserved areas of the state that is important. They have a new medical school down there, which has also helped out, in a new dental school. So being able to see these kids and get them the type of medical support that they need is critical, and especially here in Kansas City too. We got a lot of underserved areas where, English is a second language in a lot of these areas, and these kids, this is the first time they may have been in front of a medical personnel or a doctor or seen a doctor. We're giving them that opportunity to do that, so it's been really a great program. And then, we work with Camp Quality. Kids that have cancer. It's just been amazing, the relationships that we've built, with these organizations. Camp Quality answering the call is for our first responders. Ronnie Dumit does a tremendous job with answering the call. And, we support the people that support us every single day, that put their life on the line so that we can, have, live in safe communities and, and help them as they have a need. So we just want to be that tool out there that allows us to be more involved and to help the needs that we have in our community.
Yeah, this becomes a template for other teams, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's become a template for other NFL teams, right? Kansas City.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even, the fact that, we saw what we were doing even in Jacksonville when we had players down there getting involved in the community, and there's guys that started when we first started a franchise that are so entrenched and involved in the Jacksonville community, and hopefully a lot of it was because of some of the things that I had done and
you brought
said
with you down there,
right.
Yeah. How'd you get? How was that? I know you were the first minority owner in NFL history. You were with the Jacksonville Jaguars when they expanded in 1993.
Yeah,
I think it was,
95.
I'm sorry, 1995.
Yeah.
The league expanded. Jacksonville got an expansion team, and you became a minority owner there. A minority and a minority owner, but you were the first African-American minority owner. How did that all come about, and what were your thoughts about the days in Jacksonville?
Well, it was great, and how it all came about, it was just, a blessing. We talk about networking, and we talk about we're only, so many inches of separation away from somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody.
That's right.
That's really how it happened. A good friend of mine that was in the beer business with me, a guy by the name of Pat Scherzer. He owned the.
I remember Pat. I knew Pat very well.
Oh yeah, we all knew Pat.
We all knew Pat. Yeah, George Brett's good buddy. By the way.
Yeah. I miss Pat, man.
Yeah,
he's
God
such a good guy. So Pat had called me one day and said, "Hey, I want you to meet this guy. He's trying to get a football team in Florida, in Jacksonville." And he's my neighbor down at the lake, and I've known him for a number of years. And the guy's name was Wayne Weaver, of course. And so I know at the time the league was looking for minority participation with these new franchises that were, they were when they were considering expansion. So, Pat introduced us, and Wayne called me and said, "Hey, I'd like to come up and sit down with you and meet." So he came in. We went actually over to Grozo's.
Oh, did you go to Grozo's?
Had dinner at Grozo's.
Hey, who's this guy? Deron, who's this guy?
Yeah, and he came in, talked, and asked me. He says, "Hey, we'd like you to be part of it." But it was all because of Pat. Pat knew me very well, and Pat said, "I know two African American guys." He told Wayne, "I know Deron Cherry and Bo Jackson." And Wayne says, "I don't want to deal with Bo Jackson." So he goes, let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
So we had a conversation, and then right after that conversation, I think I picked up the phone and I called Roger Goodell. And Roger wasn't the commissioner at the time, but he was working.
He was in the front office.
Yeah, he was working. He was Paul Tagliabue's assistant. He was his right-hand guy. And Roger and I go way back to when my first Pro Bowl game I went to. He was working for the league. He was just kind of a gopher, and he would set up appearances and stuff. And I wound up doing some appearances, and I guess he never forgot that. Yeah. So we've been friends for, forever. And I called him and I said, "Hey, what do you know about Mr. Weaver? He's asked me to be a part of that." And I said, what do you think the chances are? And he goes, "Hey, I can't tell you what the chances are. Nobody knows that." But he goes, "I think the ownership groups likes him very much, and I think he brings something different to the table." Yeah. And, there's who knows, but, they like him. So that's all I needed to hear. And then we wind up, getting an agreement, and then I came on board, and I'll never forget. We go to that first meeting in Chicago, and we were all nervous because for me it was like, okay, here's Walter Payton and his group in
right.
St. Louis.
Yeah.
And we're in Jacksonville. And then, of course, they were talking about, Charlotte because of Jerry Richardson. And they wanted a team in between on that southeast coast between Atlanta and Baltimore, basically. Right. And so, we knew Charlotte was a favorite. But between St. Louis, who had already had a team and lost it, and then Jacksonville, who knew, and then at the time it started to get even better because their ownership group started to have some issues in St. Louis. And I think it was James Orthwine, who was with the Patriots, was coming into St. Louis, and then Jerry, I can't remember Jerry's, he was the AB wholesaler in
Anheuser-Busch
in
St. Louis, which is a pretty big hammer,
right. And so, and then they had Walter Payton and that group, so they wind up falling apart. And then I think they brung in at the last hour, Stan Kroenke to kind of shore it up, and they weren't prepared. And so they wind up only picking one team at that meeting and said, we're going to reconvene in October. And we'll see what happens over that period of time in 30 days. Well, in 30 days, Jacksonville, we went back, and Jacksonville, we wind up selling like 10,000 club level tickets in like 10 days and was guaranteeing like $1 million gate to the visiting team. It was just something astronomical. Nobody had ever seen that before. And that's kind of what got us over the hump. And then we went back to the second meeting, and we're sitting there, and I'm standing in the room as the commissioner walks out and says, we have a decision. And they said the 32nd team is going to be Jacksonville. And I'm just like, I'm jumping up, and I turned around, and who was behind me? Take a guess.
Lamar Hunt.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He was behind me. He saw my reaction, gives me a big hug, congratulates me. And, it was just an amazing time.
But what you don't say is you really took a chance. I mean, you basically took all your life savings, you took just about everything, and you poured it into that minority ownership. And gave them you basically lock, stock, and barrel. You were all in. You took a big chance. I know people look at it and they say, "Oh, well, that's. I mean, what kind of chance is that? It's he's going to be a part owner of a professional football team. That's great.
Yeah, it's a chance. I mean, and let's face it. I mean, when you look at it, the business sense of it, it's you could take your money and invest it and get a much better return, right away. The time value of money, but
in the long
run, as long as you can stay in the long run, then you're going to be in a much better position because the asset just appreciates and appreciates and appreciates.
Been incredible. Yeah.
It's been incredible. So it's unfortunate we sold, but
right.
I think
he sold to Khan, right?
Right. He sold to Shad Khan. I think it was just his wife was having some issues. They wanted to travel. He really didn't see where his kids. He had 2 kids.
Yeah.
That I think long term wanted to be in the business, and I just thought he felt that it was I think. I can't speak for him, but I would say, he might have been a little bit disenchanted with, the small market cities and how much control that they had over their revenue streams and things of that nature. And so it was a good time for him to get out where he could find one guy that wanted to buy and could get him approved. So it wound up working out.
Right. So Shad Khan buys, and then he buys all of you out.
Right.
He bought everybody out.
Oh, yeah.
He took it all himself. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's, it's his
privilege. And that's what, the majority owner goes, hey, we're selling the team and none of you guys are going to be staying because we're selling everything. So you didn't.
But you ended up doing well.
Right. Yeah.
With that situation.
Yeah.
So then when I'm going to go parallel now, when did you get with United Beverage and get with
So this was
Jim Brooks?
United Beverage, Jim Brooks. He's a great man.
Yeah,
I mean, we've had a great relationship for over 30 plus years And he's since retired, and now his son Ted is my partner. And so, yeah, but that happened. Frank, I was always looking for opportunities.
You always looking for something. You wanted to work.
Right. I wanted to work, but
and you're in that age where you guys did not make life-changing money,
and we had to do things in the off season to prepare ourselves to literally figure out what you're going to do, because you're not going to play that sport forever, because eventually something's going to happen. You're either going to get injured or the team's going to tell you you're not good enough anymore and you're gone. And I was the type of person, I wanted to control my own destiny. I didn't want the team to tell me when it was time. And, and then my 9th year, I wound up getting hurt. Neil Smith hits me, comes back on the play, hits me, tears my knee up, and you're sitting there in a hospital room on Christmas Day, and you've got your kids sitting there staring at you, and you're just like, okay, it's
getting
right. I'm in year 9, and I've got a total knee blowout, right? And you don't know if you're ever going to come back from that. Fortunately enough, technology was a little bit better, and you could recover and come back from that injury. But I was always thinking, like, hey, at some point in time, you gotta decide what you're going to do. So I had always prepared myself for that. I had good mentors, had great bankers that told me, hey, save your money. You want to have at least $1 million in the bank when you retire, and don't waste your money on stuff, just buying cars,
5 houses,
And so, guy that he was good friend, Gene Pereira, who was at the bank downtown that Walter White had worked at, got us together. And then Mr. Ozar was another, guy that would give me advice. And they all worked for Frank Morgan. He was the guy that owned the bank at the time. And they just said, I'll never forget Gene telling me, save your money, save your money, save your money. There's going to be opportunities that come, and you want to be able to take advantage of it. And it was through Gene Pereira that told me, he says, hey, we've got a guy that, is in the beer business, and it's
a good business.
Right. And he might be looking for some partners. Why don't you give him a call? And so I wind up giving this guy a call, and I get on the phone, and the guy cusses me out on the phone, like, I'm not selling my business. I'm taking in on any partners. I'm growing. I go, okay, that's fine. All right, whatever. And so there's a little more to that, but I won't say it. Yeah. And I said, okay. So, didn't happen. And probably about, I don't know, maybe 2 months later, I find out that, Anheuser-Busch had terminated him and taken away his distributorship. And then they were going to open it up to a number of different groups. So we had put a group together. It was actually me and Frank White and a guy by the name of Tom George that got together. And, Tom George worked for Eagle Snacks. It was a division of Anheuser-Busch. And basically said, hey, we'll put our team together. There's 3 of us. And, hey, I'll show you guys, teach you guys the business, and then you can buy me out at some point in time. Well, Anheuser-Busch had other thoughts. They were like, hey,
they're going to control who
they were going to control
their product.
Right. They were going to control it. And, we didn't know how many people were going to be in a group, whether it was going to be 1 or just 2 or whatever. That was going to be for them to decide. So Frank and I had always talked about, if they choose you, fine. If they choose me, okay. We don't, it's whatever they decide. And so I had gone on, I was rehabbing and taking a trip and went on vacation, and they had interviewed Frank. And then when I came back, I get a call, and they said, hey, can you come meet with us? And so I wound up going to meet with a guy by the name of Tom Sobey. He was their vice president of wholesale development. And he goes, hey, I want you to, meet this guy. And it turns out to be Jim Brooks.
Jim Brooks, yeah.
And he says, hey, it was like a 30-minute meeting. He goes, but I want you to tell me if you think you can work with him, and then we'll bring you into St. Louis and see, and then talk to the people in St. Louis and see if we can put something together. So Jim and I talk and say, hey, what do we have to lose? Let's just drive over to St. Louis, and you and I can spend some time talking. And at the time, Jim worked, he was a general manager for County Beverage, which was Nick Pizzichino's operation in Lee Summit. And so he said, "What do we got to lose? Let's go hear what they got to say." So we go over there, and they, we had a meeting. It was no big meeting, We left that meeting not really knowing what else, we could do. And for me, the time was starting to tick because we were getting ready for training camp. It was the start of season pretty much, and we might have been a month out, from starting training camp, and we still hadn't heard anything. And I knew that one of the issues and concerns would have been, okay, if they do give you this thing, then you're going to have to retire or whatever. And because they would always ask me that question,
Yeah.
Are you
when are you getting out?
Yeah, are you going to retire? And I go,
we need you full time.
I guess, yeah. And so we got down to maybe it was like a couple weeks before training camp, and we still didn't know any of the numbers, anything, nothing and they called me and said, "Hey, we're going to make an announcement that you're going to be our next wholesaler in Kansas City, you and Mr. Brooks, and we're going to get with Fleischman Hilliard, who was their advertising agency, and we're going to announce your retirement." I said, "No, you're not." It was like 2 weeks before training camp. And I'm going like, "Oh, no, you can't do that, man. You're going to make me look like a fool here. All the way 2 weeks, I'm going to leave the team hanging, and you're wanting me to come in and turn the market around."
The team's counting on you.
Right, the team's counting on me. You want me to turn the market around. I said, "You're going to make me look like a fool, and these people aren't going to, they're going to be pissed off at me. Not that I'm saying I'm this great player that they can't replace me, but 2 weeks before saying that's kind of hard to do." And I told Tom Sobey, I said at that time, I told him no, I couldn't take it now, knowing that, man, this is a great opportunity. This is probably the best opportunity I could
That's
ever.
That's Anheuser-Busch,
right?
By the way.
Yeah, you don't tell them
Number
no.
one selling beer in the
And so
world.
at that time, I told him no because I said, "Hey, you're putting me in a bind here." And so he goes, "Okay." I hung up the phone. 45 minutes later, he calls me back and says, "I got it worked out." I said, "What you got worked out? Can you tell me what you got worked out?" And he goes, "Yeah, we got it worked out."
Yeah,
And
don't worry about it.
don't worry about it. We'll work it out. Nick
awesome.
Pizzichino is going to service the territory. And then Jim in September can come in, and you and Jim can start to put the business. So I was actually playing, and Jim and I were putting the business together.
You're down there. You're down there a lot. Every day off, I know you're down there. All the time,
and so we wind up, going through the season, and I wind up, playing that last playoff game in Buffalo on January 4th, January 5th. I go in, get my physical, and I'm at the business office, gone. Yeah, opening up. So it was just quite an experience, and
it's worked.
It's worked, and I'm so grateful. I'm grateful that I had a guy and a partner in Jim Brooks who taught me the business, and who was patient with me because that's not easy to do when you're you're coming from somewhere else. And the great thing is for both of us, right, to have ownership in a business that we get along, and it's something that you could pass on to your family and to your kids one day. And I'm very grateful that I have his son Ted with me now, and it's like nothing's ever changed. It's still the same. So it's really good. And then hopefully maybe one day soon, maybe one of my kids come in. So, but it's been great, and I've enjoyed every moment of it.
Yeah. Yeah, he's also he's been tested with his patients anyway because he's Seren Petro's
So
father-in-law. He's had his patients tested a lot. So let's talk about family. How are all the kids? How's everybody doing?
Kids are great, man. It's been unbelievable. My oldest is 40, Deron Jr. And he works at KU and plays a lot of golf. He's really good at that. And then I have Austin. Who originally my stepson, but I'm adopting him. So I'm pretty excited about that. That's going to be coming up here in the next couple of weeks. We have a hearing, so I'm really, really excited about that. And then Isaiah went to Rockhurst and graduated from Creighton, and now works for the Federal Reserve Bank here in Kansas City.
All right,
he's doing well. And then my daughter, she went to physician's assistant school. She passed, and she's kind of working, looking to decide what's her next step, if she's going to go to nursing school or not. And then I have my 12-year-old baby who's big Chiefs fan and is in love with Isaiah Pacheco.
Mm-hmm.
And she's the person, there's one kid always that is like,
Tell me about it.
wants to be like their dad
Yeah.
and wants to play football and is into it. That's my girl. She's the one, and it's fun. She's 12 years old. She starts school tomorrow, and just excited for her. She's tall, but she's wanting to play flag football and do all that. But it's been good. So, and then my wife is, Hope has been just great, and we're, it's been just nice to watch our kids grow and do stuff. We just spent last week pretty much, we were down probably 3 days at the Missouri State Fair. We go down.
A little warm down there, was it?
Yeah, it was warm. We go do some things with them. We've been supporting them the last couple of years, putting together some stuff packages that they could sell at their auction and helping them raise money. But more importantly, we went down and we did a barbecue judging contest, Neil Smith and I.
Yeah.
And we're doing a raffle for Derek's car. It's his 25th anniversary year.
That car has been in front of every business in Kansas City for the past 2 years trying to get this raffle going.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we finally got it going. It's up and running, and we're hoping to get it to a lot of different areas so people can, try to win this car. But the money will go to 2 charities, Third and Long and the Deron Cherry Foundation, which is good. And so we were down there and then supporting our first responders down at the fair, like the fire guys. They're all volunteer. It's becomes like the 3rd largest fire company in the state of Missouri during the fair. And those people, all they do is volunteer their time. And it's hot out there. They're dealing with a lot of mess. So we go down there and say thank you to them, have dinner with them a couple nights, and just enjoy the state fair. And hopefully just, bring some more visibility. We want to grow the barbecue competition a little more, but just helping them out. So it was a good time for our family to spend together and have a good time and enjoy meeting all kinds of people from all over the state.
Yeah, right. And how are you doing?
I'm
physically,
doing great.
I know.
Physically, I'm doing good.
You got beat up pretty good during those 11 years.
Yeah.
Which people don't understand. And I try to talk to, because Tim and Billy, Tim Runhart and Bill Moss, good friends. And, they just, your life after the NFL not only includes, you've done very well. Billy's doing great. Timmy's doing great. But there's a lot of pain involved in life. Okay?
There's a lot of pain.
And does the NFL do enough for you guys? I
think you always say in our position they could do more, right?
Yeah,
Frank?
sure.
For what we had and, the fact that when we played, there's not how can I say this? The amount of care that has gone into what these guys deal with now from a standpoint of their physical health.
Yeah, right.
It's much better now than it was when we were playing. I could tell you how many times I got hit and had a concussion, and you go over to the sideline, it's like, okay, follow the finger.
Yeah, right. Here's some smelling salts.
Yeah.
Come on. Yeah, Coach, he's fine.
Go on back in. And then you realize, how many times you flew back from, a long flight or something on the West Coast, and, you had your bell rung and you got headaches and you're just not there, right? Not
exactly.
where you want. So, your body takes a toll. And, I'll be 66 this year. Wow, it's unbelievable to think. 66, Frank, this year.
You can still be my way younger brother, so don't feel But I didn't take the beating you took.
Yeah. So, you think about it, you got a knee replacement over here, a repaired knee over this side. You got shoulders that you're dealing with, a neck, bulging disc in your neck. So, you just hope and pray that you try to do everything you can, do some exercising, keep the weight off you, do all the things that are necessary going to give you, a little more quality of life. We don't know from a mental side when everybody deteriorates. I walk out of the house, forget my keys or forget something, that's all new.
Join the crowd.
Yeah, but you don't want to, you don't want to be to a point where hey, who's that guy?
Yeah, right.
I don't
remember you, and you don't remember me. Yeah.
And it's tragic. I think there's more that they can do for those guys that are suffering from that, because I've been in doctor's offices with guys that, I played with, Frank, and they didn't even know who I was.
Yeah, exactly.
And these guys are like 40, 45 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And so you think about that and you're going like, how did that happen? How could it have happened? And that's what scares you the most, because you don't want to end up like that. And I don't want to be a burden to my family as I get older. So you hopefully, now you're taking the steps to make sure, you got, your insurance and all those things that will help your family when it comes to that point. But, I think we're all, playing 11 years in the league and going through the stuff that we went through. We're going to have issues down the road. It's just hopefully you can keep your body in shape and do the things that keep you physically, ahead of the curve, because that curve shrinks every day.
Yeah. God bless you on that, man. Hang in there, brother.
Oh,
Hang
yeah.
in there,
Oh, yeah.
You could live anywhere. You could have gone back east. You could have done a million things, but you stayed here.
Oh, my God. It's the best decision I've ever made, really, to stay here. I didn't really want – I knew – I didn't want to live in Jersey, right? I was ready to get out of Jersey.
I'm with you on that one.
Oh, man. And really, I can count on both my hands the number of times I've been back. I hate to say that, but I'm going back this year. You remember Tom George that worked for the New York Times?
Absolutely, yeah.
He's head of a foundation back there that works with kids, aspiring kids to be great. And so they have this awards dinner, and it's like they honor these local kids that are doing great, but then they also honor some national folks that they feel are deserving, that have made an impact. And I'm getting honored in November. So I'm going to be heading back to Jersey, up to Newark, New Jersey, for an event. And I'm looking forward to going back to Jersey.
Yeah.
So that's the good thing. But
here is home.
Yeah, here is home. I mean, there's no question now. I am kind of looking for somewhere else to be in the winter.
You're out of blame me there, yeah.
I'll be like Grunhard, right?
Yeah, that's right. Head to Florida.
Head to Florida, man.
Southern, it's called the Southern Command.
Yeah. Because, I mean, it gets awful tough on these bones when that winter time comes. But, it just seems like it's hard to get away because, the Chiefs are always playing until late in the season, right?
Until February.
Yeah, until February. So it's been good. I mean, Kansas City is just I tell people all the time it's the best kept secret, because you can become something here, you can help people out here, and you can live a quality of life that, a lot of places don't offer. And, the people were great here. They're very friendly. I have people that come in town and they go, man, I understand why you stay here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you bet.
Yeah.
You will be in the Hall of Fame someday. Pro Football Hall of Fame, brother.
I appreciate you, Frank.
You're the best.
Thank
Love
you.
you for all you did for me, too.
All right.
And all you do for Kansas City, especially the young kids here. So
Yeah.
God bless you. Deron Cherry, another reason why there's just something about Kansas City.
There's Just Something About Kansas City is a registered 501c3 nonprofit organization with the mission of documenting the stories that have built our city to inspire and educate generations to come. Our work is being made possible by the generous support of local partners like you. You can help us share these stories by becoming a sponsor today. Visit somethingaboutKC.org to learn more.